All right, the diet starts tomorrow, but the podcast starts now. What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, however you consume Talking Buffalo. Appreciate you guys very, very much. Big shout out to both of our sponsors, Sunny Reds, 1841 Aber Road, just on the way from Highmark Stadium. And, of course, Imperial Pizza with two locations, the new one on Main Street, not far from Canisius College, and the one in the heart of the South Buffalo, 1035 Aber Road, my personal favorite, home of the best lunch special in town. All right, folks, I am joined right now by my guy, Maniac from Trainwreck Sports. This has kind of been like a Trainwreck Sports week here at Talking Buffalo. I had Mike Bunt on last week. Loved that conversation with him, and it was a really, really good show. And just yesterday, I had on AJ Sapolsky as well. Now I got the head guy over at Trainwreck, my guy Maniac. What's up, buddy?
Doing well, Pat. I love it. Just like Disney is putting the Hollywood machine behind Pedro Pascal, you are putting the Talking Buffalo machine behind Trainwreck Sports, and I am much obliged. Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me back. Seriously, always a good time to chat it up, even if you grind my gears a tad along the way.
Well, that's part of the fun with us. Yeah, our relationship has kind of been like that. Aaron Quinn from Cover One, same way, man. Me and Aaron are really good friends, but we could get under each other's skin really easily, annoy the living hell out of each other. But it's all love and respect at the end of the day.
In the modern day, that is friendship to me. If you can't give your friends a little shit, if you can't be the ones who tease them about stuff the most, then who are they going to be teased by? The nameless internet trolls? No, give it to me from a good friend.
Very fair. All right, so let me set the stage for today. And this won't be a particularly long episode, but we're going to react to like just literally a few hours before. I had Maniac booked for today before the James Cook news
this
even
was
broke.
Big. Yeah, when you got me on, then I'm like, all right, time to drop something, time to make something happen. So I gave us a nice little spicy little nugget to get into.
Yeah, so we're going to react. I'm sure you got plenty of thoughts on the new James Cook deal, a very lucrative contract for him. Good for him. Anyway, we'll talk about that. The second episode of HBO Hard Knocks dropped on Tuesday night. We're recording this early afternoon Wednesday. We will have some reactions to that. I'm sure some Bill stuff will come up along the way as well. But I'll tell you what, while I got you on, I should say, before we really dive into that Bill stuff, we've talked about a lot of stuff here on the show. You've been on plenty of times here now through the years. One thing I've kind of never asked you about, and if you don't mind, at least on some levels, I'd like for you to kind of maybe in the interest, you're a wrestling guy, of course, like WWE Unreal has dropped recently, kind of a look behind the curtain. I want you to take people behind the curtain a little bit with Trainwreck Sports. And what I mean by that is this. You guys are everywhere. I've been saying this from day one. The one constant, well, not one, but the biggest constant compliment that I've always bestowed upon Trainwreck Sports, and I mean this in the most complimentary way, is you guys are fucking everywhere. You really are. If there's an event going on, you could bet that Trainwreck Sports is going to be there covered. And I'm not just talking about Bills and Sabres stuff, just all kinds of stuff. You guys have been consistent with that literally from day one. But beyond the content part, and especially yourself, because again, you're not just another content creator at Trainwreck Sports, like say AJ is, or say like Mike Bunt, who I talked to last week are. You are the guy at Trainwreck Sports at this point. Kind of take people behind the scenes a little bit of the work that goes into lining up, and we don't have to get into specifics with, companies and stuff, but like lining up sponsors and a lot of the other stuff, the business component that goes behind what people see every day on Instagram and Twitter and on your website and the podcast and all that other stuff, the live streams. Just let people in a little bit on the work, on your end that goes into lining up all the things that come along with having a brand like Trainwreck Sports is now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done this for about 9 years now, Trainwreck Sports overall. And, Pat, you're familiar. Some people are probably more casually familiar. There's been some turnover during that time. We used to have a much different team then than we did now, but that has been the consistent thing, is that, like you said, we're able to do coverage everywhere. We're able to be everywhere we can want to be and everywhere we think that, Buffalo eyes and Western New York viewers should be, thanks to that team and thanks to that coverage. So first and foremost, it wouldn't be possible. It doesn't matter how many times you focus into the camera. It doesn't matter if you hit a 50-1 parlay. It's about the consistency and it definitely not the quality, because let's face it, in the first half of Trainwreck Sports, unless DJ Supreme was whipping up some graphics, some of that shit was the jankiest stuff I've ever seen coming out. And I say that with respect to Trainwreck Sports. Again, this is the absolute like golden era, flying without a care. So you get into it, and then obviously, like any podcast, like you can do this. Like, I think that if I said to you, Pat, well, I just want you to do your podcast once a week, half an hour, you might not even need a sponsor, right? Because that's not a huge time commitment. That's not a huge, like big, that's like working out. Like, like that's how often I work out, once a week, basically. But with that said, it's like, once you pass that threshold of where it's on your mind 24/7 and you're trying to line stuff up and it kind of starts to leak into other areas of your life, the natural inclination is just, well, if I'm going to be committing so much of my life to this, anything like that, you need to get sponsors or whatever. So our tale is kind of already written. Like, a lot of people are familiar with our core early level sponsors. We wouldn't be at this point if it wasn't for the Picasso's pizzas and the outlet liquors of the world. But now, with the exposure and the growth and everything, it's definitely taken on a new level. So the first thing I'll say most is, if anyone thinks they're like envious, believe me, this business part of this shit is the fucking worst. It is absolutely hell. And maybe it feels like when we were trying to do live shows, and it felt like such a struggle then to do those things. You know what I mean? Because now, I've always told people I suck at business. I am literally the worst business person ever. I just want everyone to be happy and everyone to go on their way. And rarely in business does that ever happen. Everyone wants to cross the T's, dot the I's, go over everything a million times. And you see that with new sponsors. Like, I'm sure it goes without saying that I am not even aware of the intricacies, but I would be willing to bet that there's someone at Sunny Reds and there's someone at Imperial Pizza where, if anybody was to question Talking Buffalo, or if anyone was to have a question about Talking Buffalo, that person would have the resounding, like, over the top, this is why, A, B, C, of exactly why it happened. So it's just getting that to the partner and to the sponsor, right? And now, obviously, there's some part of it that's exposure, and there's some part of it that people want to have fun with their brand. They want to make a serious thing and make it fun. Like, we covered the Kitten Bowl for Clyde's Animal Feed and Center and Celino H-Check. And we got 100 people in a restaurant in Orchard Park, like, watching these cats chase after a toy for an imaginary touchdown. But sometimes, to me, it's more fun to take something that's not really fun and exciting and make it that, versus going to a Bills game where you're kind of like in the blender of it all, right? Like, you're a victim to, or like at the will of what's happening at that tailgate, etc. Whereas at some of that other events, we're able to kind of control them, manipulate them, and kind of make them into something bigger than they ever were. So that's exactly what Trainwreck Sports is about. When we can cover the bigger stuff, we're all about it. But we also want to help blow up those little, mom and pops of operations and kind of take those to another level as well along the ride.
I feel like a lot of people don't understand, like, on the business side. And look, nobody who is doing a podcast, or at least nobody in the Buffalo market, I should say, is getting rich off doing it. There's one or two people like, say, Joe Marino. This is his living. You know what I mean? This is all he does. This is literally his living. Not just Locked On Bills, but his podcasting stuff. He does a lot of draft stuff as well. He's a content creator, and that's his living. It's not a living for everybody. What are we going to say?
No, I would take it to another level, and this is not a stab at anyone or whatever, but outside of podcasts and everything, I would say anyone talking sports in Buffalo in general is not making like 6 figures or more, which is what everyone views as like a threshold to like wealth and everything. So I would absolutely put that there. Like, if you're talking sports in Buffalo, you're doing so at the best. You hopefully, truthfully, have another job or another income source that's kind of supporting what you're doing, so you can do that kind of full throttle. It's a grind.
Sure. And look, on the business side too, whether it's Talking Buffalo, whether it's Trainwreck Sports, beyond just, like you said, the effort and the time and the consumption that goes into everything, you want to try to make some money, but there's also expenses too that a lot of people sometimes might not understand or realize, whether it's the platform itself, whether it's getting the latest new gear that you need, microphones and cameras and cages for phones and all kinds of things. You know that there's like a million
It adds
different.
up. It makes a difference, and you got to have them nowadays. I can't tell you how often through 2018 through 22, and it still even happens from time to time. People will comment like the sound fucking sucks or like something
Yeah.
like that, and that's all that matters. It doesn't matter that you went out and had a great idea and a great concept and you executed it. It didn't hit the microphone the right way, and that's all that matters. And it's going to stick with people. But yeah, I mean, it's the evolution of that. And you talked about like the business side, right?
Yeah.
It's like 3 years ago, if you had told me, hey, guess what? You're going to work a gig where you're going to get to go to SummerSlam and you're going to get to cover that for 2 nights and you're going to get to sit in a box, I would be like, oh my God, like who do I have to fillet for this like opportunity? You know what I mean? 100%. But then you get in it and you're looking at the logistics of like, okay, how much is an Airbnb for the 4 nights? Okay, we got to get food and drink for everyone for the entire trip. Like, and you're looking at the costs. It's like, oh my gosh, these costs add up quick for sure. So there's an absolute, like, listen, we have worked to get to where we want to be, and we are working to get to a further spot than we want to be at right now. But to act like we are not like climbing with every ounce of our being, and it's taking like literally every, speck of willpower we have would absolutely be a fabrication. We are grinding on a day-to-day basis to make everything happen.
One of the things I've always respected about you is I feel like as the years go by, you haven't lost, how do I say this? You haven't lost the enthusiasm for doing what you do. And I feel like you don't take it for granted. You just brought up SummerSlam, being able to do that, being able to, I don't know, like say Micah Hyde.
To be it, well, like for example, so this job has offered me other, entertainment and other, media production opportunities. So I'm able to supplement the job that I do at Trainwreck Sports with that. So for example, I'm allowed to go on my PTO calendar at this other job and say, for all of training camp, I'm off because I'm going every day. Like, you know what I mean? That
Right.
wasn't the case like 4 years ago or even 2 years ago. So, and we do that, we don't do that so it can be a luxury and sitting at camp. Like I have bad news for you. If you think if driving, 70 miles to St. John Fisher every day and sitting it is not no picnic. It is not fun at all. It is a grind. Yes, of course, the Bills are right there. And I do think that Bills camp is one of the greatest experiences a Bills fan can undergo because you have a chance to interact with the team on another level, see the team in another light, and see more of them than you might ever see at a Bills game or any event. But that Pittsford sun's hitting, you're not getting a good angle on any of these drill shots or anything, and your tweet isn't sending. Are you kidding me? There's a million other places you'd rather be. So again, it's a great privilege to be able to do it, and it's exactly what we're bad for. But every step, every inch, every notch of that climb is a fucking battle, Pat, and you know that.
It is, and I'll tell you what, I mean, you drove back and forth every day. I went 2 different times, and I stayed in a hotel both times. I was like,
I'm not driving back and forth every day ever again. I learned, listen, that's the new thing that Trainwreck has to get better at, and I will start putting that into motion. I am going to start learning lessons quicker. I am not going to be like, well, this okay. That was an absolute disaster of a decision. I got to find the timing of next year and everything, but driving every day was crazy. I'm looking at my mileage, my gas. I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Definitely get a sponsor just to put you up in a hotel 20 minutes.
I need sponsored by AAA because it can drive me back and forth with a tow or something.
One of the things that you and I are both blessed with, which I think helps us be able to put out as much content and do all the stuff that we do, is with our jobs. Like you said, you being able to get PTO time to go cover all of camp. I have a job where I work from home, and a lot of my shows that people hear every day are recorded during lunch hour. And, I might happen to be having to steal a little bit of company time to put some stuff together. I'm not going to lie, but
he gives it back. He gives it back, folks. And just remember, the diet starts tomorrow.
The creative side. And again, this is something that I really give you a lot of credit for. When you do as much as you guys do, you really do have to have a creative mind, because again, it's not just straight. It's not just Trainwreck Sports, and you got a variety of shows now and stuff like that. But whether it's other people or yourself, it's not just straight Bills talk. It's not just straight Sabres talk. What do you come like? You've always kind of had this creative mind. Like, I'll give you an example. Sports City Pizza Pub, which, I got their quarter zip up. I should have wore that for today's show. Now that I think about it, I had you on, but like,
Shout out
you know,
those wings. Are those the top sleeper wings in Buffalo, Pat? Those
they're
never get
they're
mentioned.
right up there, man. I love that place. And look, I'm not gonna lie, I'm also partial to it. It's where I'm from, the West Side. I grew up maybe not even 10 minutes from there. So yeah, I always got love for the West Side. But yeah, the food is really good. But the point is, you were there with Slick on Tuesday night for the HBO Hard Knocks, which we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes. And by the way, this is the format of the show. People, 7.5 years later, you know what we're doing here, so it shouldn't be surprised. Go get to the Bills talk. We'll get to the Bills talk, man. But anyway, you had a little gimmick. You're good at gimmicks too. Like beat me at Mario Kart, you get a free drink. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Yeah. You feel like your creative mind is always working, ain't it?
It's just, listen, growing up, and I've told people this story before. I moved away from Western New York. My family moved away from my dad's job when I was 9, and I came back when I was 15. And that absence, that distance, only made the heart grow fonder. So it's like, from when I was 9 to 15, I was just constantly thinking about like, well, what if this was Buffalo? What if this was I never saw Buffalo in any media, back in those years or whatever. But I always thought like, well, what if there was a Buffalo Jeopardy? You know what I mean? And just little things like that. And now I look at Trainwreck Sports as the opportunity to finally do that. It's a platform where we can kind of create these things. A lot of Trainwreck Sports is what we within the team kind of want to see. Obviously, there's a thought process. So like, others want to see it as well, but it's always just a desire to like, well, we think that would be cool. There's also the other aspect to this, and this, no matter who says what, that social media is absolutely a copycat league. Everyone is watching everyone, and if they're doing something that's effective, everyone else will be doing it very shortly. And so the more obscure we do kind of get, you got to admit, like, there's kind of like will they veer that far off the road to like match us? Like, that's kind of a thought process of it too.
How do you deal with, as you grow, the more you grow, and I've been through this myself and a lot of other people have, the more you grow, the more haters you get. It's the way the world works.
Yeah.
How do you deal with mentally yourself? People who, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you grind, no matter how good your sponsors are, no matter how good their production is, no matter what it is, people are always going to treat you as an unserious kind of outlet. You know what I mean? They'll always think of you or Slick or whoever it may be. And it's, does this train ever stop? You know what I mean? A couple questions like that, as opposed to some, and that stuff is fun. And I enjoy 100%. It. It's what I've always liked about Trainwreck Sports.
You were the first person to truly praise Trainwreck Sports branding back in the day. You were like, these guys got catchphrases. Like,
I still don't have one. I still don't have one to this day.
Get you one. We're gonna get our team to get you out. We're talking proud over here. By the way, I showed a bunch of Gen Zers talking about it, and you would have thought I was showing them an alien landing in the middle of. So they go, wait, this was like a campaign. Like, I'm like, you kind of had to like do anything to validate Buffalo like during this era. But
do you struggle though sometimes with the people who just want to hate and they don't want to take anything you do serious?
Yes, I would say, I bet I know you would say you're old. I'm getting up there too. Nobody like feeds on negativity as much as they could say it. That's why a Michael Jordan is a Michael Jordan, that he could take like a scruple of negativity and be like, well, this is going to like take me to the MVP. I don't think anyone reacts well to negativity. So at the end of the day, and I know you're going to agree with this, it comes from who's the source? Is this a picture of a Josh Allen avatar with like McClaps and Slaps like as a name, like, you know what I mean? Like, well,
McDummy,
yeah. They say, yeah, like who gives a shit? Now, again, if Matt Perino comes in and says something like, when you come in on my take a week and a half ago on the people can choose what they want to believe, etc., that people should vet their own source was my saying in that. Not that they should just believe everything or that anyone should be allowed to say what they want. You called me out, right? Like, we can have a back and forth, and that takes it. That's another level of why you and I are friends, right? Because what happened when you called me out? I got in the DMs. I'm like, Pat, you better not be saying this shit. Like, and then I told you my perspective, and I gave you a scroll, right? I gave you like a little scroll. And what happened on the other side of that? You're like, well, I kind of see what you're talking about.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
And I'm like,
man.
well, I see why you interpret it that way. Like, everyone can understand that, but there's no talking with the insane. There's no talking with the haters. The second you respond, it doesn't matter if you embrace them. It doesn't matter if you're negative to them. It doesn't matter if you're saying they're worthless and they suck. They've won. They have won at that point. So I do like retweeting them every so often because they'll make me laugh. Like I'll just literally see like something that'll make me quote unquote guffaw and I'll share it or whatever. Especially it tends to be from sometimes people we know as well. But you just got to live with it. At the end of the day, if you are afraid of negativity, just don't go on the internet because there will always be someone or there's a threshold of positivity, Pat, and you know this. If you have a good take or you have a take on something that's getting to a certain amount of views, a certain amount of hearts have been clicked, or someone will inevitably look at it and be like, you know what? I don't like that. And I'm going to let them know. And I'm going to let them know right now via my comments. So again, negativity will always exist as long as there's also positivity. So just, choose what vitamins you want to take from the internet. My advice is that if they have more than 5 numbers in their username, you probably shouldn't put too much stock into what's coming out.
About a week and a half or so ago, you guys were getting blamed for the report about the Max Harrison. It's like, this got nothing to do with Trainwreck Sports. And then people are coming at you for it.
Pat, we got to bring this up exactly because this talks to like my understanding of the platform. I thought I knew the internet like slightly. I thought I had a basic understanding of like how things worked and everything. So we see that CTW Pod report. Again, there's no denying like that CTW Pod has done a great portfolio of work up to this point. Of course,
sure.
I saw many credible people saying like they've never been wrong about anything. They've never been off of it. So I'm like, you know what? We got to believe it. In my opinion, as you said it, the head guy or whatever at Trainwreck Sports, I want my fans, our audience, to be aware that this report is out there. I want them to be aware that someone with a lot of reputation is saying this, and they're saying it in a severe way. Like, for sure, I want to be here. So we put a quadruple disclaimer post out there. We said, we are not, the source here. We are not reporting this. This is from this podcast, et cetera, et cetera. And I cannot tell you how many people commented back that after it all went down, like, I can't believe you folks reported that. I can't believe, you said that. I'll never trust you again. Thanks for that. So I learned a lesson. Clearly that they view if you put something out, you're reporting it. But my clapback would be this, Pat. When Trainwreck Sports shares a screenshot of an Adam Schefter report, is Trainwreck Sports also reporting it? No. Right. We are sharing the report from Adam Schefter. We are not taking credit for the report of Adam Schefter. So then we do the same thing with a Bills podcast, and all of a sudden it's you reporting it. So I'm learning. Again, like I said, I thought I knew the internet. I got no fucking clue.
Well, you brought up a good point a few minutes ago where you said that the internet, Twitter specifically, is kind of like for content creators, kind of a copycat league. You see what's working and, you kind of adapt and you go along with that. It also, in some cases, could be a cautionary tale. And conversely, those are things that I would like, that I try to learn from as well without getting, back into the weeds because I've already beaten, a dead horse when it comes to the Max Harrison report and all that. But it's just a lesson that, hey, if you want to put out something like that, you need to be prepared for what happens if it's not accurate. And in this case, nothing about that was even remotely accurate. And the old adage, and I'm not trying to sound like, the old do right kind of guy all the time, but hey, it's better to be right than it is to be first. And I would much rather Maniac broke some news and then I quote tweeted and add my own 2 cents to it afterwards than be the one to say a source tells me that Max Harrison's got a torn ACL and he's done for the season. You know what I mean? Those are the things that I really tried to learn from. Those guys, I don't know. I feel like it was almost maybe an educated guess or bad source. It was one of those other things. And again, I don't want to go down this road with that again.
I can't tell you, listen, I'll pull back the curtain. Yep. 2023, we're hearing through a source that Shaq Lawson is imminently signing with the Bills. This was during the playoff run. Like they had gotten some guys nicked up. You know how during the last couple playoff runs, they love bringing back those familiar faces because they could jump right in.
Yeah.
The source, Pat, is Shaq Lawson. So
Yeah.
what do we do? Do we
Yeah.
need another source, or should we probably feel pretty good that Shaq?
Right.
Well, guess what? He didn't end up signing for 5 weeks because of some paperwork and some BS, everything like that. People said we were wrong. So this one, as I explained to you, and I hate to do that to viewers here, keep them a little by the garden. I explained the process on what went down with that one. I think it was bonkers looking at it, and I have a situation for you now, and I got to say this. I feel Brian Cherry. Like, it's not on the level of the red helmets, clearly.
Right.
But Trainwreck Sports has like another scoop. Like, do we just like not do anything because like we got so badly obliterated and it would be like silly to just be like scooping?
Well, I wouldn't tell you to not report it. I would tell you to be prepared for the vitriol that you're going to get, though, if it ends up
always
being
prepared.
wrong.
I'm like Scar at the top of that mountain, just ready to tell him, be prepared.
My biggest issue with, and I'm not talking about that report specifically or any one thing specifically, I guess my biggest issue, and where I think, I've developed, and I know you have a lot of relationships with a lot of mainstream media people. You've worked with a lot of them. You've gotten to know them just as well, just like myself, is there feels like in some cases there's no sense of consequence for something. Like, if I worked for ESPN, or let's just say it this way, if Elena Getzenberg cites a source saying that Max Harrison's done with an ACL and that turns out to be completely inaccurate, she potentially might lose her job. Jay Skursky might potentially lose his job. You know what I'm saying? If it's CW Pod, if it's Talking Buffalo, I'll put myself there. If it was me, I'm going to get ridiculed. I'm going to lose followers. Am I going to fire myself? You know what I'm saying? At the end, there's less consequence when you're wrong about something, so you're more willing to take a chance because you're not going to have to face the music like some people. Because I hear a lot of people all the time say, well, why doesn't Catherine Fitzgerald report this, or Elena, or Skursky, or Joby, or whoever it may be? Take your pick. Well, because there's consequences of being wrong, and I think a lot of people just conclude that it's not worth it. I'm not an insider. It's not my business to be one. I'd rather react to what someone else puts out than try to be the source of inside information. That's just my mindset with it.
Now, I hope you don't remember this, because if you do, your memory of Buffalo podcast lore is just insane. But do you remember Devontae Freeman when he was here for a visit and Trainwreck had that first?
I don't.
Okay, I'm very glad that you don't, because bottom line, that would be crazy if you did. But it was it was really when I look back at it, it was a nothing scoop, but it felt like everything. We had from a source undeniable 100% information. It was undeniable that Devontae Freeman was meeting with the Bills. This was like one of those playoff weeks. That was where we got hot with our scoops later in the season, for sure. We reported that Devontae Freeman was in Buffalo meeting with the Bills. That was what we reported. That was all we reported. Ryan Talbot, who is a absolute ally, like up there with you as far as like the first people who like really reached out and was like, love what you're doing, like great, like, just keep like going, et cetera, et cetera. Ryan Talbot, who was a good friend in this situation, absolutely an ally, good friend. He messaged me. He goes, are you sure about this? Because I just messaged Devontae Freeman's agent and he said he's not in Buffalo right now. Now, Pat, thank God for me in this neophyte situation that I had, like, this source was a great friend who had paperwork essentially proving that Devontae Freeman was not only here, he was renting a car to take to Orchard Park tomorrow under the report. Like, so all these peripherals are just like insane. I'm like, thanks, Ryan, but we gotta like roll with it. Like we're too in at this point. Like we can't say, oh, we think he might not be now. Now the next morning they signed Devontae Freeman, and he was in Buffalo. It was proven. So Marcel Louis Jacques, like everyone was showing like great respect to like the Trainwreck Sports report. But it just shows that opposite side of it. It's such an unknown sphere. This agent, with no reason to really lie, is telling Ryan Talbot that his client is not somewhere where he is. And again, shit goes crazy like that. So the scoop situation is crazy. You're right. There are consequences for when you're wrong. And I would even say, maybe I sound like an asshole saying this, but you don't even get a lot of credit when you're right. Like you get talked about it for like a minute.
It's the biggest thing.
And then it's on to the next thing. So like people who think that like the scoop game is like some kind of lucrative, like get rich quick. Nope. Absolutely not.
It's definitely not. And that's probably my biggest thing, because you're 100% right. Like that story was right. And you could be right on your next 9 stories,
Yep.
and you're wrong on story 11, and that's what people are going to hammer you for. Me personally, it's just my own mindset. I'm like, it's not worth it. And maybe it's because I've went through it before. Years ago, I'm not going to bring up the whole, go through the whole thing again, but
Yeah.
I had a blog. I worked my ass off to get thousands of clicks, followers every day were reading my blog. I had interviews with a lot of athletes, a lot of credibility, and I threw it in the garbage because I didn't take the time. I was worried about being first, and I didn't all the little necessary, the verbiage of what I was reporting. I rushed it out there.
Verbiage, crazy.
The verbiage killed me, and instantly, man, I lost credibility. I was getting slammed on I stopped going on Bill's message boards because I couldn't stand reading it, and justifiably so, because bro, again, I've already explained that on the show plenty of times, so I don't need to go down that road.
Would you say the modern day message board is basically Buffalo Bills Reddit almost?
Yes, and I'll tell you, probably since then, I've stayed away from it. I don't really know much anymore. I don't go on those.
I go on there every so often. I love to see stuff on there. I love to interact with Bills fans. It's just something I do. I go on there day of a week and a half ago. They say, contrary to CTW pod report, and Maxwell Harrison's ankle is fine. They cited like the Jordan Schultz report or whatever, right? Like when they were correcting it. The second highest upvoted comment was "fuck Trainwreck Sports."
I'll give you one last example of what I'm talking about, how things just linger. And up to that point, and I was breaking some, I don't really remember, dude. I can't remember shit. It was so long ago. But I had stories. I broke some things. Again, I got credibility. And then the Sean Merriman thing turned out to be a disaster. Yeah. Our used to be a common enemy anyway, Rock and Whirl, John Whirl. All right, let me just say this. Years and years, and I will preface this by saying John and I have made nice recently. You mentioned Bill's camp. I ran into him multiple times, and the quick little dab it up and how you doing? And we had a conversation about something else that I don't want to talk about on the air. But what I will say is, for years and years, a decade later, me and him were fighting on Twitter all the time, and I feel like I was kind of kicking his ass on social media a little bit at the time. I'm just being honest with you. But he would always have that one comeback about the Sean Merriman thing. He would throw it in my face like literally a decade later, like, take you serious, the Sean Merriman shit. So again, it's just, you gotta, if you're gonna put something out there, maybe you don't fire yourself or any of that. So, but there is consequence. There's consequence to your credibility and to your reputation. And like you pointed out, man, sometimes those sources are legit. Something changes last second. It happens, but people don't want to hear that stuff. They just know that you're wrong. You know what I mean? So
shout out John Warrell. Always putting the subscribers first. John Warrell, if he doesn't realize, if he came to Trainwreck Sports, we'd be printing money.
Probably. You know what? I remember, and I'm going to be honest with you, a little behind the curtain. Joe from Queens, Buffalo Wins. I've been having him on the show for years, and he's made it very well known. He does not like the media, and it's kind of it's mostly a gimmick, but it's also real. But his beef with Whirl has been going on forever. He's the one who came up with the name Rock and Roll. But anyway, I told Joe a couple of years ago, because he would be like, get this person on. Because I'm like, I've run out of people to talk to that I haven't talked to before. And he was like, get Whirl. And I said, I will end this podcast before I ever have John Whirl on the show. Now, I changed my mind. I've changed my mind. I do have, and I did meet him in person too. It's been the summer of Whirl for me. When I had Owen and the Bulldog on, we did a show at Sunny Reds, and Tim Graham was there hanging out, not on the show. He was having some beers at the bar, and Whirl.
I'm going to give credit where it's due. There's nothing better than Tim Graham hanging out.
Oh yeah, no. If he's pounding out some beers, especially some great tales, great storyteller. But anyway, John met him up there, and it's the first physical, like, face-to-face interaction I've had with John. God, probably 20-some years. But anyway, I've seen him 3 times. We're cool, and I actually am going to have him on this show, and I'm going to definitely ask him about Trainwreck Sports when when I do.
Ask him just what would the financials take for a guaranteed money 5-year deal, like all the AP. I'm sure we can get all the frills the AP's throwing his way.
He would print money for you,
limited
man.
tab at Founding Fathers, John. It's literally on the table.
All right, guys, let's do this. I'm gonna take a real quick break. Come back on the other side, and we'll actually talk, like I said, some James Cook and HBO. All right, I am back here with Maniac from Trainwreck Sports. I'm going to be honest with you. Me personally, I've enjoyed the first half of the show probably more than I'll enjoy this half. Not because it's not good news in the second half. In fact, it's quite good. James Cook signs here 4 years, $48 million, $30 million of it guaranteed. As we speak, Maniac, he now has the third most amount of guaranteed money among running backs. Only Barkley and the rookie, Sean Genty, have more guaranteed money. And the one thing I do want to point out, props to Brandon Beam, because, man, you look at that 2022 draft class now at this point, and you had a bust in Kyrie Elam. But James Cook, Terrell Bernard.
Arguably a system bust at this point, since I saw some graphic. He's on the
He's been playing looking good in Dallas.
Yeah.
He was a Buffalo bust, so we'll call him a Buffalo bust.
But you're right. Pat, last I heard is that Brandon Bean couldn't draft. The 22 roster seems to be proven different.
Well, Cook, Bernard, Shakir, Benford. They also drafted a really good punter, and, things just went awry at that time, and the process didn't fully play out, but forget about him. You got 4 studs now that are locked up to long-term deals. I think this sends a good message to the locker room as well for what that's worth. What are your thoughts on this? It's been the biggest offseason narrative by far. It's been on again, off again, drama, no drama, then there is drama, and now it's done. What are your initial thoughts? Again, this just happened a few hours ago.
At the end of the day, this is what I call a coma story, Pat. Like, if you went into a coma in February and you emerged right now, you really didn't miss anything. I don't think any Bills fan thought that week 1 versus Baltimore Ravens, James Cook wasn't going to be out there. I saw a funny theory that his agent might be trying to do 6 games and then shut him down because he would get full credit for the season or something. So I loved that. But it was a coma story. If you were in a coma, you just came out 3 weeks before the season here, you didn't miss anything. James Cook is ready to go. And the core of it, and you could say this, I love Khalil Shakir, and I think he is going to have a continuously expanded role in the offense. I think this contract were because of number 17. At the end of the day, Bean went to him. He said, is this the guy we want if we're going to be spending an extra 10-15% or something on these contracts? He said, absolutely. These are the guys I want to work with. There's no doubt in my mind that occurred when we see Brandon Bean work like he's worked from the day he came in. When he came in, he's gotten everybody on the phones as often as he could. People forget in 2018, he's calling on Martavis Bryant. You know what I mean? This guy has been working the phones since day one. He is a franchise MVP quarterback who he absolutely wants to build behind for the next 6 to 8 years. You look at all the deals, right, Pat, like Khalil and Cook, both 4-year deals, kind of synced up with Allen. Everyone is kind of on the Allen train as far as Brandon Bean's concerned. I think that's why this makes this an easy deal, because James Cook is the quality of player when he gets the defensive look that he gets because of Josh Allen being in the shotgun aligned with 2 wide receivers, right? He can be that dynamic player that takes a 40-yard touchdown to the house. And that's why we had to give him this extra, or to match Kyron Williams, the most guaranteed. However, they had to view it out and kind of, take care of the business. That was how they did it.
I'm so happy that the Kyron Williams deal happened a week or so before, too, because it was
exactly what we ordered.
We were debating, not you and I necessarily, but just everybody, what's James Cook worth? Is it 8 to 10 million? Is it 15 or more? Is it 10 to 13? And I kind of feel like when the Williams deal went down, that was like, all right, this is what it's going to be somewhere around. And look, at the end of the day, it was kind of fun for us, as whether it's Talking Buffalo, Trainwreck Sports, or all these other outlets. How much offseason filler did we end up, mileage did we get out of this, man? Countless shows, because there was I don't think there was a right or wrong opinion about how you feel about James Cook and how much money he's worth. Because you want to talk about the pros. Why is James Cook worth this money? Well, I'll tell you, he's averaged 4.9 yards per carry as a Buffalo Bill, over 500 carries now. He had 4 touchdowns last year of 40 yards or more.
Yeah.
He tied a franchise record, O.J. Simpson, for touchdown runs. I still think he has some ceiling in the passing game. I don't think you've seen the best of him there.
He hasn't peaked yet in the passing game
No.
certain.
And go back and watch that Chiefs game. I mean, come on. He was probably the best player on the field on that day. That touchdown that he scored on fourth down
was that could have been the immortal highlight. We talk about the Gabe Davis with 13 seconds. That could have been the immortal highlight. Him reaching for that goal line.
And he's just turning 26 years old, and there's plenty of mileage left on those tires. Or, again, in the interest of a polarizing offseason topic, well, the dude don't even play 50% of the snaps. He can't pass block. You have arguably one of, Josh Allen calls him the best third down running back in the league. Why am I going to pay this guy $12 to $15 million? I don't need him. We'll be fine without him. You know what I mean? It was just offseason fascinating filler. I never got...
Well, Pat, last offseason, was there anything better than Stephon Diggs posts or Stephon Diggs quotes or Stephon Diggs blurbs?
Sure.
No. There wasn't.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you had half the people saying they were over it and half the people arguing about it. It was the same way with James Cook takes all season. I can't believe this guy's not paying on his contract. And then half the fans were saying pay him what he's worth. And then the other imaginary half were saying, we're over this. Keep moving. When you're between the months of May, or between the days of May 15th to August 15th, I don't think anything is too low as far as to talk about for the Bills and everything. There is no, obviously you have not everything is created equal. You get a Josh Allen contract signing in that window. Of course, that's going to be an albatross, but let's face it, there's not really much going on there. So I don't get crazy about what people decide to get crazy about.
I will say there was no point of any of this where I was truly worried that it was going to be an issue until the last camp practice on Thursday, when Sean McDermott clearly during the press conference was expecting James Cook to practice.
He was steaming out there. He was steaming out there.
Steaming. And
I was trying to think, just to cut you off, because this is the point. When was the last time that McDermott looked completely wrong? Wearing that Bills, it had to be 2018, essentially, when we're rolling with Derek Anderson. You know what I mean? I'm thinking about the last time this guy was that fucking wrong, that he said something and it didn't happen inside of a Bills controlled climate. And I bet you he did not like that.
I've heard from a few people that he was positively stewing on Thursday when James Cook not only didn't practice, but didn't come out at all. So you had that, and then you also had Saturday where Sean McDermott had the expectation that James Cook was going to play, and then ultimately James Cook decided he wasn't going to play. So that's the point, the only point of this whole saga over several months where I ever started thinking this could be a problem, and I'll tell you why. Because I still feel this way. My mindset has been there's two things that could derail this season. A, injuries, of course, and B, a distraction that this team doesn't need. And that was flirting with becoming potentially that disaster. But then he shows up to practice, which we did learn. Brandon Beane talked about it this morning on the press conference, that get back on the field and we're going to talk. You know what I mean? And then they got the deal done that day. Yeah, end of the day, I think it's good for everybody. By the way, I like James. I think there's a portion of Bills fans that it's not that they don't like James Cook. It's just that he's not like Khalil Shakir. You've gotten to know Khalil Shakir. I know you've done stuff with him with the dog rescue.
Yeah.
The
Shakir Family Pet Adoption Event, August 30th at Northtown Toyota, 11 to 3. Thank you, Pat.
You are never one to miss a quick plug. But anyway, you're just saying those guys much more personal. Terrell Bernard, if every personal guy, James Cook just doesn't come. James Cook's just not that dude, man. He's you and I last summer, I remember this. We were in Orchard Park together. Sal did a Sal's house. We both helped produce the show. You were emceeing.
Yeah,
people were coming up there. And James Cook was there, and I was literally 5 minutes, or not 5 minutes. I was 5.5 feet away from him, snapping some photos, meeting the fans. And it's he's not a bad dude at all. There's nothing wrong with it. He just doesn't like to talk and smile that much, man. And I think maybe that gives fans maybe the wrong impression about him. He's just not personable like some of these other guys. But I love this deal, dude. I really like it.
We've both kind of gone through experience situations where the fan base reacts to certain things. I think a good example, and this could get into a crazy waterfall, but Cole Beasley from 2019 to 21, off the on-field opinions, etc.? Does that change the way you view? At the end of the day, we all root for the Bills. James Cook gives the Bills a great opportunity for the offense to be better when he's out there. Unfortunately, yeah, I think there's been some lacking from what like people would hope for from like an etiquette standpoint, as far as like when you're there at a meet and greet, like you should be relatively happy to it. Now, again, no one's under a prerogative to be having a good day. Like we haven't been with James Cook multiple days where we've seen like everything, every interaction, of course. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely stories out there and everything. At the end of the day, to build to 97% plus of Bills fans, if this man continues to average 5 yards a carry and make every dynamic play he can on the field, ain't nobody gonna care, Pat.
And he's by the way, a pretty generous tipper. Gave an
Yes,
imperial
that counts
pizza
for
with his
something.
family. I
That
know
counts
this
for something.
firsthand. I've seen it firsthand. Anyway, look, at the end of the day, I've always felt like with James Cook, this team's just better with him than without him.
Yes,
And there was
yes.
one play at training camp this summer, and I swear to you, it was not a big play. It wasn't Josh Allen throwing the ball, 40 yards downfield to somebody or anything like wow, 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 wow. But it was one specific play. James Cook took a handoff outside, and Taylor Rapp looked like he had the angle on him to stuff him near the line. And Cook just got to that corner, beat Taylor Rapp to the spot, and he went out of bounds. He got like a 12, 13-yard gain. And I remember watching that play, and I said, Ty Johnson ain't doing that. Ray Davis ain't making that play. James Cook's making that play. It's just he elevates this offense, and we're on the same page. And at the end of the day, it's not a bargain. Is it a bargain? No, it's not a bargain. James Cook got a good deal. Good for him. You know what I mean? The Bills are paying Spencer Brown and Christian Benford, I think Greg Rizzo, probably at least a couple million less than most people thought they were going to get. So if James Cook's getting $12 million a year and 30 of it's guaranteed, which, by the way, injury guarantees and stuff, we don't know all those details yet. So maybe it's not even quite that much either. But
listen, if you want to get mad about the stadium, sure. But this James Cook contract, it ain't our money. It's the Bills.
No.
Brandon Beane is managing it, and it seems like everything so far we haven't caught. Brandon Beane got us out of cap hell real quick, and now we've been cruising ever since. I'm inclined to trust the man, Pat.
You go back to last year, or was it 2024, when they cut Trey and they cut, they made Jordan Poyer they cut, and some of these guys.
That was a dark day. That was a dark day.
It was a dark day, but it led to what we've seen this offseason.
A necessary evil. A necessary evil.
Yeah, 100%. Before we get out of here, I do want to spend a couple minutes talking about HBO Hard Knocks. Like I said, episode 2 dropped on Tuesday night. What did you
wait? Hard knocks or heartfelt knocks?
Heartfelt knocks.
Because
yeah.
I know
feel good vibes.
I know you've seen some other good. I know you've seen other seasons of Hard Knocks, and the one thing that's undeniable is this is a little bit lighter. This is a little bit more. And Hard Knocks always was about like oh, here's the 320-pound lineman who's actually like got the heart of like a teddy bear, they've always been about that.
Yeah.
But they are cranking that up to like a quadrillion. This is feel good story. This is Buffalo is warm. Buffalo is loving. So this has to do with them having final cut, right? They don't get to control
100%.
They don't get to control what's filmed, but they get to see what comes out of the other end. I mean, you can just. That I forget who said it. All credit to their take. I've seen more revealing episodes of Embedded than these Hard Knocks episodes. So credit to whoever had that take, and it's absolutely true, Pat. But that doesn't make it less fun. I would just like to see a little bit of the grit.
It makes it fun because you're a Bills fan. I could have watched it for 4 hours last night, and I was. Yeah. But I will say, so I lived in Florida for 5.5 years, and I was like in a hotbed of different fandoms, like. Every fan, every team almost. I'm going to reach out to some of them who watch, and I'd love to hear what their opinion is. I suspect they're going to think it's boring. If you're not a Bills fan, this has probably been boring so far. Here's what I got. I got 4 things. I'm going to run these by you, and they won't be long. 4 things I like, 3 things I don't like. I want to kind of get a quick take from you on each of them, or if you got anything to add as well. 4 things that I liked. All right, so number 1, KJ Hamler. If going into this, I would have been like, whatever, KJ Hamler. KJ Hamler's funny as hell. That scooter getting stolen, I think he said maybe a squirrel stole it, or that he goes, it got stolen, or maybe I left it somewhere. It's just he reminds me of Isaiah McKenzie. I know someone else. I'm not going to take credit
That
for
was
being
you and me.
original.
No, that was you and me. I said that. Is he the
Maybe it
second
was
coming
you
last night? Okay, so that's perfect. We're on the exact same page here, Pat. So no reason to go crazy.
Well, I like it.
The only snippet I had of this last year, and you tell me if you remember this. Do you remember him exchanging the autograph with the kid, and the kid's like, "I have potato chips," or "I have like Twizzlers," and he's like, "Oh, y'all got Twizzlers? Like, I'll sign another helmet." Like, it was a very just wholesome reaction, and you saw that this guy was a person. And every so often when you see that these machines moving around in pads at the speed of like, a golf cart, like literally are actual people, it kind of just opens your eyes a little bit.
A good TV show, Maniac, or a good movie gets you to root for somebody. You know what I mean? You run a root for someone.
Yes.
I find myself today.
The oh shit. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Running wide open. First he notices that he's wide open and he says, "Oh shit." And then he sees the ball come out. Like that, it doesn't get more relatable than that. I don't care if he is nervous. I want this guy as my wide receiver 7.
Yeah, dude, it's got me rooting for him. Another thing on a less funny side, obviously, but I thought the Damar Hamlin stuff was powerful and poignant. It kind of reminded everybody, he almost died on a football field. He practically was dead. In those moments, the player reactions, getting reminded of that as time goes by, when you see something tragic, whether it's Damar Hamlin, something in your own life, whatever it may be, something as time goes by, you always forget about some of the details, and you need to be reminded every now and then. And that really struck a chord with me. I remember, dude, I've had a lot of Damar Hamlin on the field hate, which I'm going to actually get to in just a few minutes again. But this stuff, it takes me back, and I remember I was crying, dude. I was a mess, man, that night. I thought he died, and it was horrible. And seeing Josh and Trey and Morse and Saran Neal and all those reactions, it really got to me, and it just kind of reminded me of that. So I liked seeing that. I liked the talking head stuff in the room, talking about the spiritual stuff and the Bible and him sitting in his room, all that stuff. I liked it. Now the on the field prayer felt a little bit HBO orchestrated when leaving the Gatorade bottle when he got up to and that shit.
Our guy intern Carson hated that. And
I saw that.
And now he's got people thinking he's anti-prayer. Again, we talk about this verbiage, Pat. This verbiage. We got to be so careful on the internet. Intern Carson literally has to reply, "I am not anti-prayer." It's freaking insane that things that people. Know. But you hit the nail on the head. I loved seeing the interest. I do remember Josh Allen crying, like looking like he was on the verge of tears, everything. The one thing I did forget watching those clips back, because you're right, the player reactions told everything, because you've seen these players react to injuries and everything like that. I forgot that Trey White was talking to someone, and it looked like he was just literally begging that anything else on earth could literally be happening at that point. Like, it looked like he wanted to see the moment. And the one thing I'll say for me, I'm not trying to sound like a moral police, but and I love, and there's nothing greater than a Bills touchdown in the shout song in my literally heart. But it was the first time I could ever remember being like, should I love football so much? Like, should I be like so like everything about a sport where something like that could happen? And then when it happened to Damar, stories came out about when it had happened other times. And like, and the thing I remember just watching that back is like, thank fucking God that happened on a Monday night football field in the middle of an NFL game versus like at some like, and I say this with all due respect to every medical team out there, at like a high school where like things aren't as clear as what's happening that quickly. And it's like, oh my God, dude, this team reacting to what happened to Damar Hamlin, like that isn't all pro. That's like fucking there's no measuring how they reacted in that time.
100%. Another thing that I liked, and look, this was just my own personal selfish reason, but I don't remember what day it happened on, but I do remember the play, and I remember doing a podcast that night and ripping Joe Andreessen. I ranted on him, ripped him to shreds. That hit on Ty Johnson pissed me off when I saw it at camp. Ty Johnson was a good step and a half out of bounds. He hit him. It was a dirty, well, I don't want to say dirty. It was an 100% a late hit. So I appreciated them showing that and Vandermark's reaction.
I got to step in for my 1 year UB Bull, Joe Andreessen here. And I got to say, I wouldn't say dirty. I would say unhinged. He absolutely knew the second he did it, he knew the millisecond that it happened that it wasn't right. He knew, and you could see him like that was wearing. You see guys who don't give a shit, like they go back to it and it's business as usual. I got to take care of me. That was wearing on the guy. So I will say that, I think you were there at that day at practice. I mean, Pat, that was one of the more worrisome moments of practice because the Hairston thing happened in a blink. If you blinked, he was off the field already and you didn't even know what was happening. Ty Johnson was kind of down in front of the bleachers for an extended period. And obviously, I mean,
he left with the trainers for a while.
No shortage of plays being made by that guy last year. So that was a crazy situation. I loved that they showed that. And I truthfully loved Buffalo Joe's reaction to it.
Yeah, me too. That's a good point. And that's what I'm saying. It's like in the moment, I'm glad they took me inside that place because I literally did a rant that day on it because I was pissed off when I saw that. But yeah, his reaction, Ryan Vandermark's reaction.
I love everything. I love every single aspect of what happened after that play. The teammates need to hold him accountable right away, just in case he doesn't realize. He realized right away, and I love that it wore on him a little bit because it just showed me he's human, and it showed me in that brain and that overall Joe DNA, he's working to get better as a professional.
That might have been the actual football portion of Hard Knocks, the highlight of the whole show for me because of the way that played out. And then the last thing for me that I really liked is the continued the quarterback relationships in that room. It does sometimes relationships can feel phony and coerced a little bit. I feel a genuine, like these guys genuinely like each other. Like I think Mitch Trubisky and Mike White genuinely like each other. Now maybe I'm reading the room wrong. It's possible. They're competing. They both want to win that job. You know what I mean? And they know they got to be better than the other guy. So you can only maybe root for a guy to a certain point. But I don't know, man. It feels like a really good quarterback room. And then Josh is playful with those guys too. The quarterback stuff has been fun for me to watch.
I think you get the advantage of clarity, right? The fact that they both know, like, yes, they are competing with each other, but they're not competing where, I could be in the starting spot in like a good couple of weeks, if 17 struggles, I mean? Like, that's not obviously anywhere in the sphere of reality. I love the relationship too. Pat, I can't tell you, we went to camp a bunch. My favorite part of the day, and this will get Trainwreck a little hate or whatever, is the QB race. Come on. Like, there are so few things where they're actually competing at full throttle, and the way these guys were cheating, the way these guys were kind of trying to maximize any edge, hilarious to see every day. And I think it only speaks to the relationship and true friendship they have. They know the scenario. They know what's happening. They know they're in a lucky spot professionally, regardless of what happens. And if I'm a Mike White, if I'm a Mitchell Trubisky, I can easily catch on with a team with a worser QB situation than the Buffalo Bills, theoretically down the line. So I think they're both living to their best potential. And I love the relationship, like you talked about.
3 things I didn't like, and one of them just stuck out like a goddamn sore thumb. And that was the coverage of James Cook. Like, it felt like the coverage was like a blip on the radar screen. And it's by far been the biggest story of camp, other than maybe the injuries. And you go back to the day I talked about earlier, on Thursday, the last day of camp, they're filming. Sean thought he was going to practice. This just showed me without question that the Bills have not just some creative control, that they have total creative control because Sean McDermott spoke and they could have showed that. And then James Cook doesn't come out. None of that.
Would have been a dunk. Would have been an absolute fucking dunk on him. And what's the other thing, Pat, that fans have been like, where is this storyline? Where is it? Keon Coleman, the other guy who is absolutely being organizationally controlled. And listen, I say this for the best. He could absolutely come out right now this year and be a cyborg. 70 catches, 900 yards, and 7 touchdowns. This guy could absolutely knock the doors off. And that's all I care about. I do not care about the yellow jacket. I do not care about chocolate chip cookies. Keon Coleman is an awesome personality. I think the media sometimes runs with craziness, and we especially do it in Western New York. But like you said, just tying it back, Bills media control. They are making sure there is the only thing you're seeing at Keon Coleman is bodying up DBs for highlights.
That's true. Yeah, with James, him not practicing was a big story on Thursday. It wasn't a big story before that.
That would have been a historic clip. If you had been like, McDermott, he's going to practice. James Cook is not at practice.
Yeah, they could have dug into that and they didn't. That's where any being able to even consider the fact that maybe the Bills don't have total creative control. That went out the window there. The other one, you mentioned it too. Keon Coleman was my second one. We're not seeing him. I don't know. Is that maybe him I don't think it's him not wanting to be filmed.
I have a sneaking suspicion that at the end of the last episode, they tend to do like a overall clip like montage humor thing at the very end. I would not be surprised if that is just all quips from him. Literally, I could totally see it right now.
And then the last thing, and look, admittedly, this is going to come off as biased because I've been very non-objective about his play.
Everyone grab on to something.
Well,
I'm talking Buffalo. We're about to get biased.
I like the we talked about it earlier. The Damar Hamlin stuff was really powerful. It was, but I get that, dude. He played awful against the Giants, and they showed him on the field on Saturday with nice run stuff, and that. Like he played, if you watched HBO and you didn't watch that game, you would have been like, yo, DeMar looks in midseason form. He looks really, really good. Well, guess what? He didn't. He was terrible in that game. There were no less than 2 or 3 plays where he got his ankles broken. I'm not even talking about the touchdown pass that he got kind of whatever. We're not even going to talk about that. But
if that's me, I'm at least sprinting all the way to the wall of the stadium, something. I'm not like,
I watched the all 22. He got locked. There was a slot receiver and he had his eyes on him and his feet got heavy for a minute and then he was just way too late. But that Washington caught a pass. And it wasn't just him. It was Strong and Couch got fooled too. But then DeMar just got shook and you could just see how slow he runs after that. There were 3 or 4 times on film you could see it, but no objectivity with him. And I get it. He's a big public figure, but man, they painted him in such a good light on the field too, and that was not the case Saturday.
How often do you see it, right? Like sometimes on the internet, like someone will have a take that seems like revolutionary, but they're just like 2 things can be true. Like, like Josh Allen could have had a better start to the AFC Championship game this past year, but he also gave them the best chance to win the last like 3 quarters. Like, right. Both things can be true. In this case, I think it's Damar Hamlin is a remarkable individual with a story that will never be replicated, will likely never be replicated, will never be, done on a football field. And he's a great personality off the field and a great foil for that. Is he the best option for the Buffalo Bills to be at the safety position in the top 4 spots? I think that's very much in question.
Look, he was a free agent. People forget this. He was a free agent. He could have went anywhere. If there was a market for him, he wouldn't be back. He signed a 1-year deal for $2 million to come back to Buffalo. If there was a market for him somewhere else, he probably is not a Buffalo Bill right now. So his story versus his production are 2 different things to me.
On that note, that league reputations start to develop, certain things, et cetera, et cetera. Like at the end of Bill Belichick's tenure, when you were getting a defensive player from the Patriots, that defensive player may have been exceeding their individual ability, right? Yep. Is that starting to get out amongst like the Bills defense, maybe like the Buffalo Bills overall? Because you just look at players that have left the Bills, and I don't say this with any disrespect whatsoever. I always, now that I've been close to these players, et cetera, and I say that with absolutely the biggest bag of salt directly in my face, everyone who's ready to hate, but it is a business. Like I want these guys, like there's a lot of money at play, their livelihoods, everything like that. I mean, Pat, nobody has like really like prospered, like leaving the Bills. Like I think of the Jordan Phillips, I think of the Shaq Lawsons, I think of the Jordan Poyer last year. Like
Gabe Davis, Mitch Morse,
Tre'Davious when he went to LA, he did catch fire in Baltimore. Yes, but like, is the book starting to get out? Like when someone leaves Buffalo, maybe we should be aware that they're, the sum of the parts might be greater than the individual.
Tremaine Edmonds is the only player I could think of that, and I know why he didn't sign. I know
he's close, right?
He's still been, he hasn't fallen off. He's still good. Well, if you thought he was good in Buffalo, you'd still think he's good in Chicago as well. But the price tag was just, egregious. So I completely get that. Last thing that I want to get out of here, and this is just, I don't know, me being a petty a little bit, but Jordan Poyer, it's funny. You got a sense when he was in Buffalo, you got a sense that he kind of wanted to go to Miami, and I always felt like he was going to end up playing in Miami. Of course, Rachel Bush really helped prop that those vibes. He was a free agent.
Just to be clear, when we talk about this being a business, 30%-ish of your money is directly back in your pocket. And we're talking about millions of dollars.
Yeah, for sure. So it always kind of felt like he's going to end up there. When he was a free agent, I thought for sure he was going there. He ended up re-signing with Buffalo. Miami didn't really make him a good offer. Anyway, the Bills cut him. He goes to Miami. I'm like, all right, the dude got what he always wanted. Well, he might have got what he wanted in terms of the taxes, in terms of living in the sunshine and the weather
Not always
and all that. But
not always greener.
that football team was a disaster, and it is so obvious that Jordan Poyer knows that. And now that he's not playing anymore, he's taking some digs. I saw this tweet. I want to pull it up here. He was, I'm not sure, he was in some third world country, okay? And he gave somebody a Jordan Poyer Bills jersey, and a fan commented about what they didn't want a Dolphins jersey. Jordan Poyer's response was, I don't even want that. I just find that shit funny. It's like he wants his time with the Miami Dolphins. Let's just put it this way, Zach. He does not want to be remembered as a Miami Dolphin when it comes to being a player.
Does Ben Affleck want to be remembered for Good Will Hunting and Argo, or does he want to be remembered for Batman and the Justice League?
That's fair.
That's how I remember. And that's exactly the same case here. By the way, shout out to Jordan Poyer for joining the illustrious and very loved coalition of Buffalo sports athletes for over half a decade that go 1 year to Miami and think it's the biggest trash they've ever seen, joining Thurman Thomas. Congratulations, Jordan Poyer.
Really cool, man. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up, man. Going for a full hour. I appreciate your time, as always. I know you're busy. You got a lot of shit going on, so.
Lots to catch up on. This is where are we on the roller coaster right now? Are we halfway through the initial, ramp up where you get to the top of the first, dive or spiral? I think we're just about halfway there. There's still a lot of anticipation. What's going to happen with Shakir? Is Hairston going to be people are talking Hairston being he's going to be behind mentally. I think this could be a little benefit. I think he's been out on the practice field, and now the game can kind of slow down as he steps and takes a look at film. Keep in mind who did that their rookie year, albeit he did get to actually play some games first. Joshua Patrick Allen.
Sure. And, the Cole Bishop thing is what I'm really going to be locked on. Which, by the way, it is newsworthy as we record this on Wednesday in terms of actual Bills news. Rapp and Bishop not only practiced today, but they were on team drills too. It's been reported. So,
massive.
I keep talking about Hamlin. Well, guess what? If Cole Bishop can get right, hopefully we don't have to worry about or cross that bridge with him. But anyway, make sure you're following Maniac on social media at Zach Sheldon. Wing reviews. Dude, we went over an hour and we didn't even get into wing reviews. I will say this on the show.
We can do our own show on that.
As we end this show, I will say, you and I definitely got to collaborate on a couple wing reviews. It's one thing. Well, actually, that's not true. We did one at G. McCarthy's years ago together, but long overdue.
We've upped our game a little bit. We got to. You and I will have to do a wing gauntlet one day where we do maybe 2 or 3, knock them out, and we kind of go spot to spot.
Now, you guys still haven't done Sunny Reds, right?
I think we have Sunny Reds on the list still.
All right. Well, I can't do that with you because I will absolutely be, I'll be accused of being biased.
You'll be biased. I always tell people when we go to Sports City, when we go to Elmo's, for example, I'm a big Elmo's person. Sure. I always, you got to acknowledge your bias. Once you acknowledge your bias, I think it becomes a little okay.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, guys, make sure you follow Zach on Twitter at Zach Sheldon. Of course, all the great just grinding shit going on with Trainwreck Sports. I appreciate you, buddy, as always, man.
Hey, it's always good to be talking Buffalo. Thanks for having me on, Pat.
All right, guys, I'll be back. One more show coming up here for you on Friday.